In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law, I wish to state that on July the 19th, 2019, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board, mailed to the Decatur County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel-Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up until the closed session portion of the meeting and will be available on UTTV Channel 97 and on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct that this announcement be made a part of the minutes of this meeting. I would ask our American Legion folks to come up and lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance, if you wouldn't mind.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you call the roll, please, Joanne?
Mr. Barr? Here. Mr. Coggins? Here. Mr. Corson?
Present.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mayor Palumbo?
Here. So we have a couple presentations this evening. I think I would like to recognize Roy Schoen on behalf of the Township Committee, who is retiring from the Township after many years of service to this Township. And I'll read it. I'll ask Roy, would you mind coming up with your family, and I'll read the resolution because I'm sure everyone would like to welcome you. Whereas Roy Schoen will soon retire after 32 years of public service to his community, during which time he has served in many capacities within the Department of Public Works, beginning as a laborer, equipment operator, recycling coordinator, and upon attaining his certified Public Works Manager certificate as road repair supervisor and principal Public Works Manager from 2008 to the present. Whereas through his inherent kindness and goodwill, Roy has positively impacted the lives of our residents of this township and has enriched those fortunate enough to know and work with him. It is appropriate that Roy's tenure of public employment and his years of faithful service to this community be publicly recognized. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee that Roy Schoen be publicly congratulated on the occasion of his retirement from the Township of Upper, that he publicly be thanked for his many years of dedicated public service to our community, and that this committee, on behalf of all the citizens of the Township of Upper, extend to Roy Schoen, our fellow employee and friend, our very best wishes on his retirement and his future endeavors. And I think he deserves an incredible round. Did we get him to say his speech? I know. Roy is a very humble person who does not like the recognition that goes along with some of the accomplishments that he's done, but he has always, in the 22 years that I've been on the committee, he's always been there for everything that this township needs. So we congratulate him on his retirement and wish him well. And his whole family's back there, by the way, so a round of applause for those guys for putting up with all this stuff. And we also have a presentation this evening of the Blue Star banner to Ed and Connie Kennedy for their son Kevin Kennedy. So we would ask the American Legion to come up. I'm going to ask Commander John Olison to present the Blue Star, and I'm also going to make sure that everyone, not only here in attendance, but on the video, will know that American Legion Post 239 are honored to present to the Kennedys the Blue Star Service banner in recognition of their son Kevin Kennedy. So we'd ask you to come up, and then I will present you with the Blue Star pins as well as this portfolio there.
And while you're bringing on, he can read the history.
Yeah.
It has been an American tradition to display a Blue Star service band in the window of a home when a loved one is proudly serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. As Americans support troops deployed over the world, the Blue Star banner is a reminder that service in the military touches every neighborhood. The Blue Star service banner was designed and patented in 1917 by World War I Captain Robert L. Questier of the 5th Ohio Infantry. The captain's two sons served on the front line. His banner quickly became the unofficial symbol for parents with a child in active military service. Further action by Congress on September 24, 1917, again during World War II, and again in 1967, took action to officially adopt the banner to be displayed by families with a loved one serving in the armed forces. The American Legion rekindled the spirit of pride in our military women and men following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. For several years, Ted Baer, who was our prior commander and who has passed away, provided families with the Blue Star banner. After his death, there was a period that the banners were not given out. Our Aaron Whitcamp Colwell Post 239 of Tuckahoe, in cooperation with the Upper Township governing body, will provide a Blue Star banner to families in Upper Township that have a loved one serving in the armed forces from now on. This ceremony this evening will be the new beginning of recognition to those families who have loved ones serving. An application for the banner will be made available upon request to Upper Township Municipal Clerk Barbara Young at the Township Hall. You can download from clerk@uppertownship.com. You can download the application form from the Upper Township website. Or you can contact a member of Post 239, and we'd be glad to lead you through the process.
Thank you. Presenting this, which has all the documents in it, and I'm going to pin you and hope not pin you, but actually pin the stars on it.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah, that doesn't trust me. All right, got that one on.
Fingers work.
Thank you very much.
You're all welcome to stay, but also be very considerate of your time. You certainly can go and have a good evening.
Thanks, folks.
Why do you want to hold them up? So we're going to jump back to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from July 8th, 2019, regular and closed session minutes?
Motion to approve? Second.
Is there any corrections, deletions, omissions that anyone's aware of? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried.
So, Scott, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and committee members. Just a couple of things this evening. First, and this is an annual thing, it started last year with actually recognition of students that are residents here in Upper Township. Every year, the students at Ocean City High School's TV media program, they team up with the Ocean City Police Department Traffic Safety Unit to produce public service announcements on bicycle safety. They have requested us again this year to, it's a competition, I should add. They've requested us to, the Ocean City Police Department has requested us to add to our website under latest news, these videos. They're very informative, the kids are very talented, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to read off the two teams that were recipients of recognition for this contest. Allie Jane Rogel, Anna McCabe, Karen Greenwood, And the second team was made up of Kayla Killian, Nathan Gowdy, like I said, their videos, very informative. They will be part of our Upper Township website at uppertownship.com. The next thing I have for you is basically a reminder to all residents of Upper Township to recognize the recycling and trash collection process, which is, again, on our Upper Township website. Be cognizant of what you put in recycling to make sure it is the proper recycling materials, and you do separate that properly from trash. And the reason I bring it up once again is because of the Cape County Municipal Utilities Authority. They are cracking down on the entire township with respect to single stream disposal, the disposal process. And more specifically, we received a letter recently from the Cape County MUA. It basically says, please allow this letter to serve as a notice of the following revisions in the Cape County recycling program. Due to limited end markets and increased contamination potential, bulky mixed rigid plastics and shredded paper have been removed from the county's recommended and designated recyclables list, respectively. And this is effective October 1st. All bulky mixed rigid plastics, which is basically all hard plastics, regardless of size and color. Examples include plastic laundry baskets, plastic toys and playhouses, plastic lawn furniture, etc. And shredded paper will no longer be accepted by the Cape County Municipal Utilities Authority's intermediate processing facility. Now that means it will not be accepted as recycling. It'll now be trash. So it's very important from the perspective of the way we collect trash. We will be inspecting it more closely before it gets to the landfill, because if not, we are going to be subject to penalties and whatnot, some of them monetary, if we take a truck in there with the improper disposal process. So I just bring this to everybody's attention. We have placed this information out on our website, and we just want to make people more our residents more cognizant.
The big thing too is the recycling, they want no plastic bags.
Yes, correct. Yes.
A lot of people put the recyclables in a container in plastic bags.
Correct.
And
A dark bag, and they figure we won't inspect it. And what we've been doing, we will go through, we were going to make it a practice to go through before the pickup time, maybe a few hours before, and inspect certain areas. And if we find that kind of thing, our inspection team will have to take appropriate actions at that time. So, that is all I have tonight.
Could you recognize the lieutenant for us as well, please?
Oh, absolutely. Tonight we have Lieutenant Henry, from our new commander, from the New Jersey State Police Woodbine Barracks.
Thank you. And he's a great asset to our community, and he is very reachable by this Township Committee. And we certainly welcome him and appreciate all that he's doing with his squad, down at the Woodbine. So. Joanne, do you have anything for us?
I have nothing, thank you.
Daniel?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Paul?
I have a few items this evening. First, I'd like to request that on an upcoming agenda to request to bid the 2 bulkheads for replacement in Strathmere, the Putnam Avenue bulkhead and Sumner Avenue. If you recall, we just submitted the permit applications for Putnam Avenue. I would anticipate they'll receive the permit probably within a month or two, but I'd like to start the process of getting that ready to bid so that once I have that permit, I can quickly put those projects out to bid to try to get them done during the winter season and have them completed before next summer.
Okay. Goes without saying, we're at the new elevation on the proposed bulkhead.
And that's one reason. The one bulkhead is
8 foot, right?
these 2 bulkheads will go
I
up
got my
8
ordinance
foot.
book right now.
And with that, all of our bulkheads will be at the required bulkhead height in
That's right.
compliance with our ordinance, yes.
9 years ahead of schedule, right?
9
We had
years
up to
ahead.
10 years.
Yes.
Great.
The next item, I was working on the new permit for our beach management plan permit, and they have a new requirement, and it's been in the news a little recently. I think the press ran an article as far as the public access plan is now a requirement of that permit. So I've started going through that process. We will most likely have to have at least one public hearing regarding that to at least garner some public input on, what other access points that the public may feel we need throughout the township as far as enhancing our public access and other situations. So I'll be working on preparing that, and hopefully I can have a draft to committee by the end of August, so that we can get that approved in the process of getting our beach management plan updated, so that we can do the maintenance beach raking in January in a more timely fashion for next summer's season.
So part of the beach access, I think we're already compliant because we don't even have beach fees.
We are compliant with all the provisions of the beach management plan. In other words, we have access to our public waterways. We have restroom facilities, our porta potties, especially in the beach areas within the proper distance. We meet the handicap requirements. So we comply with all the requirements. It's just more the documentation that, the acknowledgement that we have these beach access points, that they're going to remain open to the public. And, I've heard that they've asked one town, like on some of their street ends, that they actually would potentially file a deed restriction that those street ends could never be vacated and taken away from potential public access.
Well, I think from the success we've had from including the Moby mats on the streets that we have now,
Yep.
I'd like to see us expand that. We've had great response from beachgoers and even residents.
Yes.
And, unfortunately, there's some on the streets that we don't have it. They're saying, why don't we have it? But it really has been a success, and I think for budgeting for next year, we certainly, can probably bring almost every street up to that. And because of that, I think that's also an enhancement of our beach access. So
Most definitely. I've heard the same situations that, the public really, makes it more accessible, even though it's not totally handicapped accessible. It does make it more accessible for beachgoers, whether or not you have the physical disability. It just makes them, more accessible to get on the beach.
well, I also think what it does is it steers people to go down a straight path, because the streets that don't have it, people are roaming as soon as they get, off of the ramp. Where they have the mats, they stream down in a file down to the beach, the water's edge, and then scatter from there. So I think in that part, it'll help our beach continue to have its natural form that we have in place.
So I'll make sure that as we make our budget proposals for next year, I'll provide a good summary of status of where we currently have beach mats, and then what it would cost per access point to add additional mats to those areas, for sure.
Wish we had them when I had kids. Your covered wagon, bring it down to the beach.
Yeah. And as hot
Toys and everything, it's great, nice hard surface.
as hot as that sand's been the last couple of weeks.
Well, it really is making a difference.
Yeah.
The one street that we've had an issue in is we had the mats initially on Vincent, but we moved it to Tecumseh where the stand was supposed to be, but because of ditches and some current there, they've actually moved the stand to Vincent. And so that's the only street that's not corresponding at this point. But you're right, a lot of people appreciated having the mats to get down, because the sand over this weekend was stifling hot.
Yes. And then the last thing I had was Scott and myself met with Lansing Electric about 2 weeks ago, and they updated us on the project where they're going to be replacing the transmission towers that cross the Great Egg Harbor Bay from the B.L. England generating station northward to Atlantic County. So they're going to be replacing them. It's going to take about a year and a half to do the project. They'll actually be constructing new towers, I believe, to the easterly side
of the existing towers. There'll be a monopole and approximately almost 100 feet in height above the water. So they will be taller than the existing, I'll say, lattice tower structures that are out there now. Once those towers are up and the new lines are hung and energized, then they'll go in the process of demolishing the old towers and removing them. But it'll take about a year and a half to do that process. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara?
If nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Committeeman Coggins?
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Committeeman Young?
Just two things. We're fired up with the football program right now at Codwell, and we're having a major issue with the lights down there. I know John's aware of it. It's something we're going to have to look into. I mean, you know, they play night games, they practice at night, and time-wise, when school starts, it's impossible to have practices without them. So I think they said, what, John, there's 11 to 15 lights out right now?
It's 15 hours, got to price quite 700 hours to replace the bulbs, and still waiting for a quote for the lift. So
But-
it's going to be,
Do we know if it's the bulbs or is it the hoods?
well, we're going to replace the bulbs and fire them up, and whatever is not on, we got to call bulbs probably, and have the electrician look at it.
Do we have a lift to get up to those lights?
Yeah, we have to rent it.
With the on. You know, we've had major deterioration over the last couple of years. I mean, they've been up there for
36 years.
since the late 70s, early 80s. And I think a lot of the underground wiring is starting to deteriorate as well as the mast.
This won't happen
You know, we're putting a lot of work back into the park, and it's a shame right now. I was out there the other night with the lights on, and it just looks shabby. You know, to have them and not have them working. So I think we need to try to look at getting money or whatever to move forward with new lights out there.
But for now, for the immediate situation, we're going to replace the bulbs and see if it works, right?
That'll be our first step to find out whether that's what it is or not. If not, then we're going to have to look at some major repairs probably. John, anything to add on that, or?
So we need new lights, the LEDs.
Yeah, so that's the big thing right now. How are we making that? We're getting that graded out there.
I'm sorry,
How are we making that? We're getting the rest of that graded off out there.
worked on it some more today, I was still waiting for it to dry out right now, so just a couple of soft spots there.
Okay. All right. So we're still working on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Would it make sense to get a quote and bring a private contractor in and get that done?
Part of the problem we've had is, you know, when it rains, then it turns to muck and you can't get the machines on there, so. And John, do you have time, is it a time management issue? Is it a time issue, or?
We can work on that after the meeting. I just think, to Committeeman Coggins' point, if we're backed up with other things, maybe it might make sense for us to have somebody come in and replace the bulbs and see if that's the issue. And I'm not sure if we can get somebody out there at a reasonable amount of time, but, you know,
We usually use Bucks, right? Bucks Electric.
You'd have to get quotes. You'd have to get quotes.
okay, so I think, you know, because of the situation and because, you know, I don't want to rush the summer go, but we'll start, you know, seeing shorter hours of daylight. You know, we need to get it taken care of, so.
Yeah, my big thing is, you know, it could be something time consuming. I don't want to see us wait a month before it's
Well,
needed.
if we can find someone that would have the equipment to do it,
You know.
it would prevent us from having to rent it. It would certainly have
Yeah.
somebody that has more of an expertise in replacing the bulbs, and it might ultimately turn out to be a better,
Savings.
right, or scenario.
In the long run.
So,
All right, I would appreciate if we would move forward that way with the lights. The only other thing really, I'm sorry, there's two other things. The car show again, I'm going to be always announcing that. It's September 28th is the car show starting at 10 o'clock. We are looking for volunteers and organizations to get involved on that. And then the only other thing is some of the commercial sites in the area. Not many, but enough of them that they're not maintaining their site plans. I won't go over a list right now, but I'll meet with you, Paul, and I think we need to start doing some enforcement work before these things really get deteriorated. And so, many of them are fairly new, the newer projects. Grass isn't cut, irrigation is not being used, shrubs are dying, and, I think we need to get a little more involved in the enforcement issue.
All right.
All right? That's all I have.
Deputy Mayor Barr.
First of all, I would like to welcome aboard Mr. Craig Reeves, who is now our Commander of Public Works, and also his second in command, Michael Jones, who is helping us out and helping Craig out with getting the lay of the land. So wish you guys a lot of luck.
And Craig, we're not looking to give you a retirement thing in the near future like we just did to Roy, so.
That's right.
So, welcome. We appreciate you getting started, and, we look forward to, your leadership there, so.
That's it.
Committeeman Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today we met with 3 very qualified people for the EMT spot we wanted to fill in. Very hard to make a decision, but we actually pretty much all landed on one guy. I'd like to make a recommendation that we hire Matthew Steinthal to fill the position of EMT, the starting salary of $45,000. Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
And I don't really have much except for, again, to recognize Lieutenant Henry for his efforts. I believe that the parking and some of the issues that we were experiencing early have been addressed, and state troopers have certainly been out there and have been there many times and have addressed the issues. And I do believe, that as the day-to-days go on, that things are being really taken care of. And I believe Friday afternoon we were over there was one car that was parked on the side of the there's no parking. So I appreciate all the efforts that you are doing, not only over in Strathmere, but throughout the township. You've certainly made a much greater presence of your vehicles and the awareness that the state troopers are patrolling, and I thank you for that. So with that, let's move on to the resolutions.
Number 3, congratulating the Upper Township Challenger Track and Field Team on their achievements in the New Jersey 2019 Special Olympics.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 4, honoring the heroic efforts of Edward Steinbinger.
Move the resolution.
Second.
And I would only add that Mr. Woolley is in the audience. What Ed did was use the Heimlich and certainly help Mr. Woolley, who was in respiratory distress from dislodging an obstruction he had. And he's happy to be here this evening, I'm sure. I just think it was a significant public opportunity, someone that was not one of our EMTs or whatever, that went further and used the Heimlich motion and, helped Mr. Woolley get through his issues. So we'll recognize Mr. Steinberg when he comes at one of the future meetings, so.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 5, renewing mobile home park licenses.
Move the resolution. I'm going to abstain from.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Abstain?
Mr. Corson abstains. Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 6, renewing the mobile home park license for Osprey Cove.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Abstain.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 7, renewing campground licenses.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Abstain?
Mr. Corson abstains. Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 8, renewing the campground license for Whippoorwill Campground.
Move the resolution.
Have a little discussion on this one.
Second for discussion.
I was just wondering, with outstanding issues going on there, do we have to approve this, or is it something we,
When you say, do you have to approve it? It's been recommended, this is what we did last year by our litigation counsel. It's in litigation now, they're not using the contested sites, and everything's been shut down as far as that's concerned. And we reserve, if you look at the resolution, it actually says we reserve all rights that we have to pursue other remedies that for prior violations.
all right.
So it's safe to adopt it if that's what your question was.
Yeah, I was just, again, if it was something we could hold a little hammer over them also, but if council says we should move forward, we will.
This is one we have to follow council's recommendation. Correct.
Yes.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson abstains. Mr. Young?
Yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 9, renewing the campground license for Echo Farms Campground.
Move the resolution?
Second.
And this is a similar situation, but not a severe degree. There are some minor violations there that have to be corrected, but they're working on it, and they're not using any of the areas that are in violation.
okay.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson abstains. Mr. Young?
Yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 10, authorizing the mayor and township clerk to sign a contract with KD National Force Security Investigations for professional security services.
Move the resolution?
second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 11, authorizing a contract amendment between the Township of Upper and WSP USA for additional design and engineering consultant services.
Move the resolution?
Second. Paul,
This is for the amendment to do the additional design and permitting work up at the Beasley's Point Park and part of the county improvement.
so this is like the boardwalk or we had talked about?
Correct, and additional access out to Route 9.
Okay.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 12, authorizing a one-year extension of the contract with Cape Professional Billing, Inc., doing business as Cape Medical Billing for emergency medical billing services.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 13, tax refund for Block 348, Lot 3102.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Canceling and refunding taxes on exempt property, Block 472, Lot 2.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 15, authorizing the Upper Township Tax Collector to extend the third quarter grace period.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 16, authorizing the execution of a NJDP TWA1 application statements of consent form regarding 37 East Webster Avenue, Strathmere, Block 845, Lot 17.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 17, authorizing agreements with the State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, Division of Fish and Wildlife, and RA Outdoors LLC, DBA Aspira, for the sale of fish and wildlife licenses and permits.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 18, appointing Brandon Anderson as a part-time employee to the Upper Township Division of Emergency Medical Services.
Move the resolution? Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 19, authorizing the demolition of unsafe structures and the preparation of advertisements for bids for such purpose.
Move the resolution?
second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. 20, authorizing the mayor to act as a hearing officer for personnel matters on behalf of the Township Committee.
move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes,
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carried. Under discussion, NJDOT Complete Streets Policy.
Paul?
Yes, this came up, I saw it in 2 locations, and I just wanted to bring it to the committee's attention about adopting this policy. First was when I was completing the most recent NJDOT local aid applications for the pedestrian safety on Neptune Drive. One of the questions was, has the township completed the street, does the township have a complete street policy, yes or no? If they're asking that question, that's one of the ways that they're grading these applications to provide NJDOT funding. And since I had to check no, I started looking into, well, how can we increase our chances to get funding for that type of a project? So I looked at that, but about a week afterwards, when we had our meeting for renewing our plan endorsement process, the DOT was there, and she talked about, well, we noticed that the township hasn't adopted a complete streets policy, and that's one of the items that the DOT is going to be looking to us to implement as part of our plan endorsement update over the next year. So I took a look at it. I prepared a draft resolution, which is the complete streets policy. And essentially what a complete streets policy is, that you acknowledge that as you review projects, whether they're new roads or reconstruction of roads, that you will take every opportunity to analyze, to add pedestrian and bicycle improvements as part of that roadway improvement to make it a true complete street. It's, streets in those public right-of-ways aren't just for vehicles. They want to enhance and have that ability for all modes of transportation, especially in our, downtown centers area. It doesn't mean that every street is going to have, put in bike lanes or try to put in sidewalks, but you have to do the analysis to say, hey, is it warranted? And if it's warranted, then, as long as it's not a cost prohibitive or out of the scope of the cost of the project, that you would incorporate those site features into that project.
But most of our roads that would have any access for bikes or even, pedestrian crossing is one thing, but for bike access, they're basically state and county roads.
Actually, the one we just paved was the extension of Stagecoach Road. That would have been a good candidate for a bike lane.
That would have been
Well, that being said, it's paved and we don't have to worry about it for 15, 20 years.
And that street has sidewalks. So and looking at that analysis, yes, we probably could have, in that case, put up some signage, for share the road kind of thing, and some striping along the shoulders, to
dodge the bullet.
But that would have been a minor cost when you looked at the overall project. So it's just a policy acknowledging, how streets should be utilized and looking at it. Obviously,
Can we incorporate county and state roads in that?
If we have that policy, as the county would come up and propose, road improvements for a project, that would be a comment we could make back to them and say, hey, this is a road that we, especially we just completed at the planning board level.
There's 2 potential projects that I was thinking of, like the second part of Hope Corson, and then also Corson Tavern Road that's going to be done.
That's county.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we can incorporate that in the county roads where it would make sense to have that access.
Hope Corson Road, we can't really do anything because the project already has been bid, and actually they're getting ready to start the project in about 2 weeks. So, it's the timeliness of, as the county lets us know these projects are coming out, we can identify them. We could also probably send a memorandum over to the county, since we've done the bike plan for the township, which also identified.
Or we could actually encourage people to spend their highway tax dollars for what it was meant to be, the highway for motor vehicles.
Well, the question is, does the county have a complete street policy?
I believe they probably do. I don't know that for a fact, but I know that that's one of the things that they have to look at.
So theoretically, when they come up with a project like Corson Tavern Road, they should be thinking about their own policy and what should be implemented.
Correct. But I think it would be incumbent upon us to reinforce that with them if a county project or the state. I know the state's asked us to meet on some resurfacing of Route 50 for a section of Route 50. So, as those things come up, that we could also discuss. I know They're also looking at a paving project on Route 9 from Harbor Road down to into Seaville, and that's one of the focuses of that project is looking at pedestrian safety at various intersections and those types of things. So it is something that we can do.
I think what Paul's asking for is a resolution on the next meeting that, similar to what he's proposed. The proposal, I did look at it, it needs some tweaking, but it's essentially a statement of purposes and intent. There's no commitment financially at this point.
Right. But I guess I'm looking at it from a practical standpoint, like, I can't see a lot of our residential streets having, a bike path because people are riding in the middle of the street, there's not that much traffic to begin with.
That's correct.
Right, okay.
Actually,
All right, so if we're on the same page, as long as we all understand this, I have no problem with supporting something like that. But I would also think that it makes sense to probably, when they put the plan together, to incorporate the state and county things, because we have so much of that runs through the township, so.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to vote to put a resolution, is that what you
We'll
want?
just
Motion to,
We'll bring a resolution to the next meeting if
Okay.
the committee's okay with it.
is there anybody
is
that's
that a motion
opposed
on
to
your
it?
part?
I'll make a motion to move forward.
Second, there we go.
Thank you.
All right, call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Thank you.
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes, there are 3 reports for the Municipal Department's Animal Control Division of EMS and Municipal Court. All of these reports will be available upon request tomorrow at the clerk's office, but I'll make a motion to accept the reports.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes. So at this time, we're going to open it up. If there's anyone from the public who would like to address the Township Committee, now's the time to do so. Please come up to the podium and state your name and your reason for addressing the Township Committee.
Wait.
Natalie Neese, 759 Route 50, Petersburg. I'd like to talk about the off-site advertising at the County Road 631, 610 traffic signal intersection. I think the signs are obstructing the view.
I believe a letter was sent to the zoning department and they're investigating
She
it?
responded, yeah.
She was,
Private property, it's not in the site triangle.
And they're at the intersection of 2 county roads, I mean,
it's not in violation of anything?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Has there been anything issued from zoning to that effect?
I believe she
Answer to another
responded, I
request.
think she responded to Ms. Neese's
I
inquiry.
see you mean the zoning officer.
Yes. I don't know the exact, what was in there, but I know there's.
Now, if that's accurate, and you've got a letter saying what the determination of the zoning officer was, then you can appeal that to the zoning board, but the township committee has no authority here.
Do you think that, that the signs are a benefit to Zimmerman?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Do you think that the off-site advertising signs are a benefit
I
to
can't
Zimmerman?
tell you, I don't know what the facts are. All I can tell you is that the zoning officer made a decision, then you have the right to appeal to the zoning board if you don't like what that decision was. We've talked about this numerous times on other issues, that the township committee doesn't have authority.
I think this is the first time I talked about this issue.
This issue, but it's very similar to numerous other issues you brought before the township committee.
But did you receive the response from the zoning officer?
I think I had a meeting with Shelley and Paul came into the meeting.
Do you think you did? Or
Yeah.
It was not regarding, I don't believe it was regarding that issue, I think it was regarding a different issue.
Is the County Road 631, 610 intersection considered pine lands?
You know what, you're asking
No.
questions that...
No, that is not in the Pinelands.
Okay.
Okay, well then, under our ordinance, Chapter 25.10 signs, it clearly says, "No sign of any type shall be permitted to obstruct driving vision, traffic signals, traffic direction." Goes on to say, this is under purpose and general provisions, "No billboards or off-site commercial advertising signs shall be erected or replaced, except in the Pineland area."
Again, if that's the complaint that you gave to the zoning officer, and the zoning officer gave you a response, and you don't agree with that response, you have the right to appeal to the zoning board. The township committee doesn't have authority over that.
What happens if there's a bad accident there?
I imagine somebody would call the fire department or rescue squad.
Yeah, I think what needs to be done, this has to be worked out through the zoning office, and then from there, as Mr. Young has communicated to you, that this is not, at this point, the jurisdiction of the township committee. It goes then to the zoning board to determine whether or not, there's a valid complaint, or, there's issues that need to be addressed.
So who
But
takes
we don't
that?
have oversight over that board.
I think every one of you drive that intersection.
Yes.
There's a light there, right?
There's a
Yes.
traffic signal, yeah.
Right.
And you also have Chapter 20, the sign that addresses it. I find it curious that it's not being properly addressed, but that's just my opinion, okay? The second thing I have is, who do I tell about Zimmerman's farm animals feasting on my property?
They're doing what?
Feasting.
They're eating grass, is that what you're saying?
They grass, they come over, they climb up and knock over on my trees, eat the leaves. What?
You're talking about the small triangular piece
No,
on the other side of the tracks?
I'm talking about my property.
So his animals are running loose.
Hobie, do you have a conflict on this? The Zimmerman property? No?
I don't know why.
No, it was,
Well,
Do you have a conflict?
at this point, I
I'm just trying- I know the last
at
time
this
you told
point,
somebody
I want to
about-
say no. 3 years ago, I did business with Bill Zimmerman. I'm done doing business with him. It was a one-time transaction, and I'm done.
I just want to make sure that we
So-
don't have a conflict, that's all.
No.
Because I knew somebody did, and that's what I was asking.
I think it's the
From
other
one
side.
side, don't.
The other side,
Right,
the Youngs.
right, exactly.
Sorry.
That's all right.
But the bottom line is, I don't know the circumstances of what you're complaining about, but if an individual trespasses against your property, you have rights. You can go to municipal court, or you can talk to an attorney about what rights you have in Superior Court.
I'm guessing these animals are domestic animals. Farm animals?
Farm animals.
They're sheep,
Okay,
goats.
none of us here are animal control. We do have an animal control officer. Animal control officer will investigate it. The clerk's office will be more than happy to give you the phone number tomorrow.
Animal Control has previously told me that they do not investigate with farm animals.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll take your request and your question, and it'll be relayed through the zoning office. Joanne's taking notes, so we'll look into it for you.
Has damage been caused to your property?
Yes.
You can also go out to Woodline Barracks, sign a complaint, file charges.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the township committee? Okay, it doesn't appear that there's any other comments, so we'll close the public portion, and I'll turn to Committeeman Coggins to entertain a motion with an executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are contract negotiation with animal control and a shared services agreement with Upper Township Board of Education, litigation for affordable housing and personnel. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all for attending this evening. Please drive safely. The roads are probably wet from the recent rain, so